personal power, people positive, the community of connection. This is the Bob Jeswald Show.
I love this when you have guys who are serving and still active duty, and that's kind of the energy and to me is what drives a civilian to want to serve in a different way on the outside to help somebody who's working literally in the inside, especially our Army Rangers, particularly. They lead the way. So there is a Army Ranger Lead the Way Fund that is certainly going to be kind of teed up, if you will, on a platform with a marathon. How about that? So Donnie Ellis, Army Ranger, has just signed up for his first marathon. Amazing stuff, Donnie. Always serving. So you're still active, and on this other side, you're going to go to the Chicago Marathon without even a qualifier. How does that even happen? Let's just start with that first.
Yeah. So I've been an avid runner most of my life, but just never went for the marathon. So started looking at it. Actually, one of the athletes I actually coach up in Harris County said, "Hey, coach, you're getting a little bit older. When are you going to do a marathon?" So took his advice.
Get a little older, please, right? Because we've had 80-plus-year-old guys, but you're not that old. But anyway.
Yeah. So I started looking at a marathon that I wanted to do. I was born in Chicago, went to college in Chicago. So, so I looked at the Chicago Marathon. Well, you have to have a qualifying time to get in there. So never ran a marathon before, so how do I get in? So started poking around the Chicago Marathon website. You can get an entry in if you agree to raise funds for a number of organizations associated with the Chicago Marathon. So I chose the Army Ranger Lead the Way Fund, near and dear to my heart, served in the Ranger Regiment for a number of years, and thought this is a perfect way for me to initiate my first marathon.
I love it. And without having a qualifier, just so people understand, I mean, this isn't for anyone listening, like a civilian person. Say, look, I want to help their Army Ranger Lead the Way Fund, and just, this would be cool to do. But generally speaking, like usually, like we used to have a soldier marathon locally here, and it ended right before COVID-19. In fact, it was the last year. It was a 10-year run that they had. And but for you, doing this is good because you're doing it for the special cause, but they're going to be able to get you in on board. I mean, there's a New York, and there's a Boston, and those are qualifiers, and the Chicago's big too. I mean, when you talk Chicago, New York, and Boston, those are three biggies.
Yeah. So actually, the many of the same organizations that are available for you to raise funds for. So I just happened to look on the Army Ranger Lead the Way Fund page. They do it for the New York Marathon, for the Boston Marathon. Just so happened to be I chose the Chicago Marathon because that's where I was from. And it's a good time of year to go run a marathon in Chicago, which is October. So the weather's nice and crisp and cool in comparison to down here in Georgia. So, really looking forward to going up there and getting a good time and raising money for the Army Ranger Lead the Way Fund.
Because you know how Novembers could be down here. They could go from one extreme to the other. There was a Savannah marathon, I want to say it was might have been back in 17 or something like that. I can't remember, and people were falling out. I mean, even somebody had a heart attack. It was so hot on the course. And when that happens, people are like, oh, my gosh, I can't believe what's happening here. So that's always a pretty interesting thing. So on another note, this fund is important. What will it do? If there's someone out there, you have to have a purpose and a cause when you go out. A lot of folks, hey, we show up at runs, they run to run. I'm just running because I just want to see how good I could do. I like it because I like the camaraderie, or I like the feel of it. I like the exercise. I like all these things that help us perform better, or just in general. But if you have that little bit of a purpose, if somebody's looking to support this, you got this platform, and you're sharing on Facebook. And again, it's just by your own dime and everything else. So people understand it. I mean, this is how near and dear to your heart it is, as you just said. So you come up, you support your travel plans, your accommodations, but you're helping this nonprofit out. And others can do the same, maybe just as easy as sharing a doggone thing, but maybe even participate.
Yeah, absolutely. So if, like me, if you want to run a marathon, but you need a qualifying time, they create this platform. So if they do give a slot for someone to run in these really big marathons, such as Chicago and New York and so forth, they want you to work for it, do something for it. So raise money for a nonprofit, a good organization. So the Army Ranger Lead the Way Fund provides transition services for Rangers getting out of the Army and going on, wounded warrior care for
good one, yeah.
For Rangers that need it, families. They help build some houses. There's just a lot of services that Many Rangers help support and donate. There's other ways to donate to it. You don't have to like run a marathon to donate to it, but they run several events throughout the year that raise money for it. But and it just so happens to be my particular situation is, I create a Facebook page or a donation page, and you click on it, and your donations go directly to Army Ranger Lead the Way Fund. It doesn't support my entry fee into the marathon. You got to pay like $200 to run a marathon.
Sure.
If that's your thing.
Yeah, people think it's cheap. It's not necessarily cheap, but it could be well worth it at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Hotel stay, airplane, that's all on my dime. Anyone who's interested in doing recreation sports, that's your hobby. You pay for it. The Army Ranger Lead the Way Fund, pretty much all they provide to the participants of these marathons is an entry.
Yes.
Get you that spot. So in my situation, never ran a marathon before, so I get to get a slot into my hometown marathon. So it's pretty fun.
That's so cool. That's so cool. You guys, you got to listen to this, because I would take full advantage of this if I could. And if you would, as an avid runner, and you train guys in the military, we know you've even a friend of ours, Chuck Kogel. I heard the whole story. It's just great to hear these guys talk. But and they just happen to be Army Rangers, these guys. And, he was just this couch guy and, kind of sluggish. And of course, he went through, I'm not downplaying, because to get through boot camp and do the stuff that you do to get in the Ranger Regiment is a whole different ballgame. Not everybody makes it. Yeah. But you took him on a course, literally, of a journey here, dude. I'm going to make you run. And you're and you have that passion. So it's crazy, because you've had this passion. I mean, you were kind of like a numbers guy before, like an economist, or what was your undergrad was more, you were more like I want to say more financial kind of planning kind of guy. And then here you go, one day you get inspired. I want to serve this country. And you do this, but you have this element of just fitness and just passionate about it. And you brought it into the regiment. Tell us about that.
Yeah. The Ranger Regiment, those guys are, they're just such a phenomenal cohort of people. I mean, you get guys who were great baseball players, throwing 90, 95 miles an hour for a baseball. I mean, Pat Tillman joined.
Yeah, look at Tillman,
joined the Ranger Regiment, and there's thousands of guys you meet on a daily basis. Me, I just happen to be a guy who ran cross country and track in high school and college. When 9/11 happened, I was a bond trader for Morgan Stanley. And when 9/11 happened, I had this, I want to join the Army, and I had no idea what an Army Ranger was. Mm-hmm. Joined and went through basic and found out about Rangers in basic and said, hey, I'm going to go try out. And, the rest is pretty much history. But you mentioned Chuck Kogel. So I show up to Ranger Regiment, and I meet Chuck Kogel. He's in my squad. And, regardless of what you did before you came in the Army, Ranger Regiment gets you in shape real fast. And it's not just if you're a good runner, they let you be a good runner. You got to be good at everything.
No, you got to be good at everything. There's no BSing around there. My late father-in-law was, and he told me stories. But there's different sizes and shapes of guys. And Chuck's a big guy. So people got to understand. How tall are you, Donnie?
So I'm like 5'10".
Okay, so you're good at you're average dude, but this guy's a big dude. So explain that.
So we show up, and Chuck's just not your normal. He's just not a runner. He's good at other things, and just got man hands where if there's like something stuck or like on a machine gun or something, I just vividly remember. Here I'm tugging on it for 5 minutes straight, and Chuck walks over and just twists and a pull, and it comes right out. It's just different strengths in different ways, and mine just happened to be in running and endurance because I grew up doing it.
That was your
high
thing.
School. And Chuck admittedly told me, he's like, I rode a skateboard in high school.
Can't picture that, but it's funny.
But this same guy who didn't run very well, fast forward a few years, this is a guy who goes to Best Ranger competition and gets. And
second. That's where we're getting at.
Yeah.
And that makes you feel good. That's your driving mechanism. I mean, it really is. You can see you light up. When you say it, if people aren't watching the video portion of this at RBL.com or YouTube, I'm just looking at Donnie, and you totally lit up, brother. And when you did that, so that's big. It's a big deal. And this is why you're able to parlay this in yourself. It's interesting though. I'm listening to you talk, and you started this out with I never ran one before. So if anyone listens to this podcast, it's the first 5 minutes of it, they may say, well, dude, this guy sounds like he's not even a runner. People got to understand, he keeps up with high school students. He's a volunteer coach on his own time too. Just does this. Truly passionate about it, and it even has been called coach, which drives administrators crazy. And in a high school, they're, wait a minute, he's a volunteer coach, not a coach. But that's how much you're revered amongst these kids and that, and they respect that. You're intense, and that's good because you want them to be their best. And frankly, the school that you're involved in under Coach Nesbitt and that, you guys are just driving this thing and building on the success, year after year after year. And that's what you do. But knowing you, who said, I've never ran one of these before, when you say that, I'm like, this is nuts. I go, like, I don't doubt any moment for a second. The guy who understands right down to the seconds, splits, and know how to figure out each kid's potential, like you analyze it because you were an analyzer before. I mean, that was your previous MOS in civilian life, and you take it literally to that realm, and everybody. So for a moment, there's no doubt I'd bet you $100 you'd be able to run it now. I mean, why couldn't you? I mean, you're long distance, but you're short distance too. You just happen to be in a track season at time of this podcast, but I don't doubt in a second. If you just said you're going to go out one of your sons, I mean, both your sons run, let's just go. And you would do it.
Yeah. I mean, could I complete 26 miles? Yeah, I could probably run through 26.
Yeah, because you know how to pace. You know how to do all the right things.
So just I've never actually signed up for one and went and did it. Now, a number of half marathons. Yeah, I've run plenty of half marathons in the past. But you talked about training with the high school kids. That's truly a passion of mine. I absolutely love it. We show up on the weekends and, we'll run 10, 12 miles and that's probably enough to keep me in shape to run a half marathon or to run a full marathon. But my goal is I have some specified goals. I'm getting some guidance from people who have trained in marathons. Coach David Marley at Columbus State.
The 2:30 marathon runner.
Oh, he's hit
crazy. What was his best? I saw him 2:30 at Soldier one year.
Yeah, he hit low 220s in leading up to the 2020 Olympic.
How does someone do that?
Trials, and he just barely missed those Olympic trials. But definitely a great resource locally to say,
yeah.
Hey, David, I want to run my first marathon. Give me some tips on how to run it, and because it's not like running a half marathon,
right? Not at all. No, because a half to me, I got sandbags on my quadriceps on mile 10 because I'm not training in that capacity. So it's a big deal.
Yeah. So not taking the half marathon lightly. But that being said, things like participating in 75th Ranger Regiment over the past 20 years. Hanging out with guys like Chuck Kogel and David Marley and the high school kids at Harris County, they build you up quite a bit. And, there's no doubt I'm going to go up to Chicago and do very well. But I want to do my best. So
what do you say? First one, I'm going to guess, like, if I could see you trying to go for, like, 4 to me would be like, I would be real proud of your efforts. But I have a gut feeling you want to do better than that.
So my half marathon is right around 7 minutes per mile.
Okay.
So pretty modest. So bumping that up to 8 to 8:30, I totally, like, as of right now, I could run 8 or 8:30. So my goal is over the next 6 months train to try to drop that as much as I can. So I think a reasonable goal for me is about 3 hours and 15 minutes.
Okay, I said 3:30. So that's great. That's better because you think of that, the person who. Let me ask you this. Do you think, because I watch you and I see how you train and when you train others, which is remarkable. It's an interesting formula that you have. But do you think that is a person, and I often say this, somebody was born to run. I know you heard that, like that person, oh, geez, they got it. Your mindset is, I'm going to figure this person out. Everybody can do it. Is that kind of, am I wrong in saying it?
I will not turn away an athlete that says, hey, I want to run. We got a junior in high school right now. He's never ran a day in his life. He's like, I never played any sports. Right. And he shows up, and I was like, just stick with the process. You got to embrace the process. And I'm not saying you're going to be a state champion, but at the same time, let's set your goals. And I quote Kobe Bryant quite often, just be better than you were yesterday. That's all you got to worry about.
Yeah, that's true.
And a lot of those kids embrace that. I was like, don't worry about what that other guy is running. Just worry about you. And if you focus on you on a daily basis and be better than you were yesterday, then you can only help but knock a couple seconds off your mile time each time you run it. So this young man's now running in the 6:30, 6:40s, where he couldn't run a mile when he first started. So that's a perfect example.
Exactly. It's just it's coaching in a sense, and you're kind of coaching yourself, but you are also surrounding yourself. People understand, even those who you've coached are inspiring you. But then again, you got like people like Dave Marley, a Columbus State University coach in the Columbus, Georgia region, and they kind of help you. Is there anybody else that's coaching Donnie Ellis besides these guys? I mean, he's good. I mean, I would say, well, you probably got one of the best ones right there. Is that all you need, or do you adopt a lot of your own principles to it too? It always seems like an interesting catch.
Yeah, and people ask me all the time. So, what certifications, what education do you have in
we've talked
training?
About it too. Yeah, I'm glad you said that.
I don't have any. It's like I pretty much kind of coined myself as like that shade tree mechanic. The guy who can rip a car apart and put it back together, and that thing runs great. The same thing with coaching. I'm USATF certified, which are some online classes you take. But as in a degree in kinesiology or human performance, I don't have anything like that. But I do reach out to a number of resources, so online resources, books, and so forth. So some of my favorite coaches out there are Doug Souls.
Mm-hmm.
At Merriman High School in Utah, but he coached at Great Oaks in California, won a bunch of state championships. Sean Brosnan, these are all high school coaches. I followed Scott Christensen from Complete Track and Field up in Minnesota, won a bunch of state championships, and I've used his program to coach my own son, Caleb Ellis, who ended up running about 9:15 for the 3,200. Our goal was to get down into the low 9s, and Scott Christensen's program helped us out quite a bit to get him down there. So again, and I know my son Caleb will tell you, not a natural athlete. Not, you wouldn't look at him when he was in 7th and 8th grade and think, oh, that kid's going to be, a great runner someday. Right. The same thing with me. I picked up running a junior in high school, and again, it was just one of those things as your self development. Yeah. And I really believe that. I don't train these high school kids to go on to the Olympics. I train them to give them something to give them confidence, so when they get that job, whether it's in TV or whether it's go to the Ranger Regiment or go become a doctor or to finish college, that, hey, Coach Ellis put me through a 10-miler on Saturdays. I can study for this test for a few hours and do well.
And help them do better time management.
Yeah,
I've heard that before from you. So that's really good, because all those elements coming together right now, and it's true, because you wouldn't have these consistent going to state, and we're using Georgia as an example, or getting some of your kids into, I've seen you bring them over the river into some Alabama venues for some invitationals over the years, and Birmingham or Smith Station. I'm just from a low level to a big regional level, and getting into regionals and getting into state champions. Just doesn't happen with taking, I don't want to say this, like a sissy approach. I mean, rest or this and that. Because if you had any criticism, everybody's a Coach Saban gets criticism. Every coach will get a critique. Yeah. But if you look at the numbers at the end of the day, the numbers always seem to show, well, this is a winning team. This team is building. Now, there's going to be some grunts and moans in between or this and that, but it always seems to work out for you. And taking this to the Army Ranger Lead the Way Fund is, I think it's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun to watch. October, give me the date again. October, what is it?
October 13th is it's a Sunday.
Sunday, yeah. Yep. Okay, so 13 October of 2023. And again, I'll say it again. Obviously, the link's right here on wherever you're getting your podcast right now. It's right there, and you can click it, and you can help and share or do whatever. And it takes it to your Facebook page. I see you and Jennifer on there. It's a pretty picture of you guys. So take that and share it. Do whatever you can. So now that we talked about that just for a second, tell us about the fund itself. How's it going to help? It's going to help families, and I know I do a lot with Gallant Few, and then there's Darby's War Support with these are also Ranger guys that I know, from Tony Main to Dennis Smith. What is it that you think is going to help them? What is it that drives you in that fund? What is it going to do for a Ranger or a family member?
Yeah, so they directly work in collaboration with USSOCOM. wounded warrior care. So, and that provides everything from, some sort of assistance with when Rangers are injured in action, any of the things that come along with them being wounded, all the hardships that happen when they come back and their families, helping them get that medical support, just providing that liaison. Because sometimes when you're going through all those medical things, it's very overwhelming, and to have some folks that will be able to help you, walk you through that process, or at least put you in contact with the right people to help you get the medical care that you need to. For a young Ranger who may be in his mid-20s or what have you, and never had to really go through a bunch of medical appointments, and then all of a sudden, he's dumped into this lifestyle of, wow, I have to go to the doctor 2, 3, 4 times a week, which, when you're young, you take your livelihood for granted sometimes, and then all of a sudden now you're seeing a doctor several times a week and what have you. The other things the fund provides in terms of housing for those that are wounded, whether you've got to modify a house, a walkway, or some things like that, that can be very costly for, a young family, especially with new medical issues and what have you. So there's a whole number of things. The link on the website will send you straight there. Good. You can look through it and see the number of things to do. Sometimes it's just they'll provide, maybe you get chaplain services in the military, but then when you get out, you want to still meet with somebody who's, got some religious support for you, what have you. They'll provide those types of connections with chaplains out in the civilian world to, just keep you moving and keep, doing great things in life and what have you. So just a really good fund, that good organization that I'll send as many emails as I can and knock on as many doors as I can to get folks to help contribute to a fund that I wholeheartedly believe in.
Donnie's never afraid to not over-communicate, which I appreciate, because I know even in my business, you got to not say it once, not twice, 3 times to get people motivated, because even to get people to work with my Gallon Few, we do the Patriot Challenge in the month of February for 565 miles, which was kind of triggered off by Corey Smith. He was an Army Ranger who went through a lot and ran in the month of February, 28 days from Fort Benning, Georgia to Indianapolis, Indiana to see his daughter. And his wife had left him when he came back from theater, and he had a lot of turmoil, lost a couple guys, and he was ready to literally put a gun in his head until somebody said, "You want to do that to your guys? Put the gun down, do something." And he ran to the point where his feet got fractured, and the next thing you know, he's biking and had people help. I mean, he made it.
Yeah.
He made it, and there's different ways of doing it, so we inspire people to do it. Is there any swag, or is there anything that somebody could wear and just, because the reason why I say this, people get jazzed up when you run and you can, let me just use Soldier Marathon, for example. I can't tell you how many civilians loved it. When you can go in and you see pictures of these fallen soldiers, men and women, and you can adopt one in a sense and tape them to your back, or pin them to your back, if you will, and in honor of that person, or maybe they were in a unit or whatever, were ambushed, and some of them were killed in action, and you would, because that's what it was about. Soldier Marathon, at that particular one, is to raise for them and for House of Heroes, and there's a few other things that help support military. But you would put that on your back, and there's something about it. Do you know of anything like that with the Chicago Marathon for you, for your fun? I know the marathon's for many different things, but for your particular fun, if somebody wanted to climb on board and just be part of that, because it does do something. Listen to me, folks, when you're on this podcast, it really, that's what motivates me, but it really gets you teed up for, like, I'm ready to rock and roll, and you're doing this for someone.
Yeah, so I know the Army Ranger Lead the Way Fund website has a store. You can buy T-shirts and do all that kind of stuff, and what have you. I believe that they provide some sort of like a singlet for those who are supporting. So they kind of it's kind of a team. So I'm not the only one that's participating in raising funds for the Army Ranger Lead the Way Fund for the Chicago Marathon. So I'll probably show up the day before, and then all of a sudden meet a Ranger that I knew from Ranger Regiment. I'm like, dude, you're doing this too. And so I hear that happens all the time.
Absolutely.
And so there is like some team wear or what have you. I'm not sure what that looks like, but they said you'll get a packet when you show up there. But absolutely, there's like a team store, and one thing I wanted to add is in 2007, James J. Reagan died in Iraq due to an IED to their Stryker vehicle. It was his family that stood up the Army Ranger Lead the Way Fund.
Okay, let's get to the.
And that was, and that's very near and dear to my heart because I didn't know Reagan personally, but at the same time, he was a sergeant. I was a sergeant at the same time. So, you know, you kind of go to different schools and you see guys and what have you. He was in a different company. He was in Charlie Company. I was in Alpha Company at the time. But I do specifically remember on that deployment. So, you know, my whole platoon comes together and we said a prayer that day, and so that moment has always been stuck in my mind because your brother's over in another part of Iraq getting hit, and you know, and then you get the news that one of your guys, even though you don't know him, it
doesn't matter. It hits absolutely.
It literally feels like your blood brother died, even though you don't know him. You're just overcome with grief, but I do remember that day my platoon asked me to say the prayer for awesome. James Reagan, and so that's always stayed with me. So you know, another part of me was like, you know, I met James' dad a few years ago in New York at one of these fundraisers for it as well, and just a great family. And you know, I just look into the eyes of his dad, and I'm just like,
holy crap, that's him.
Yeah. Anything I can do to help raise money for this fund, because his dad just pours his heart into this fund to help take care of more Rangers, you know. And it wasn't a family that just overcame with sadness and anger and what have you. They're doing something so positive for the Ranger community. So that's why, you know, just another reason on top where I like, hey, I got to participate in this when I can and raise money and do my part.
Obviously, Donnie doing a fantastic job. I mean, this is what wins battles. This is what wins on the field for kids running, whatever it may be, but meeting a family and you were driven by that. It sounds like that day when that happened, see how God works, because you mentioned that you were chosen to do this and lead the way. And it's exactly what he's doing. If you'd like to lead the way with Donnie Ellis and help support him, and even the Chicago Marathon, you heard a little bit about the story. There's no rest for the weary. And the last thing I'll say is I would think even as an Army Ranger too, I think you adopt a lot of that into your training too as well. So despite the fact you kind of say, well, I'm not certified, I'm not in kinesiology educated, but you've educated in so many different ways. And to me, that's life experience that really pours in and truly that has made a humongous difference with those you've touched over the years. So we really appreciate it. I know his family really appreciates that too. So do your part if you can. Be part of something big. The Army Ranger Lead the Way Fund is something you could do. Share it. It's right here on your page. It's that easy. And let's get Donnie across that finish line, which, he's going to be there. No question about it, like you said. And learn a little bit along the way. Follow him because you give so many cool tips in that just to see some of his techniques and those he follows in the industry, I'll say, when you go to Mammoth Lakes, or if you go, kind of see these kids, look at these kids running in California, and you'll run high elevation, or you'll do this. So there's a lot of cool things. And it's more, like he just said, it's something that helps build on young people's successes, even middle age, even our age right now, and older, to show how you can really balance out your life when you adopt the plan of running, and in this particular case, supporting the Ranger Lead the Way Fund. Thanks, Donnie Ellis. Good job, brother. Any last words?
No, thanks, Bob. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, of course. Absolutely. Hey, very few words. That's the way they are. The Rangers are. They just go right to business. That's good. So stay with us here on WRBL.com. This is where we stream first. And, of course, you can get that at 7 Eastern, 6 Central. Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Audible, YouTube, TV. Those are the 2 video places in here at WRBL.com. You can also check us out on social media. Social media is a place where Donnie's fund is, Ranger Lead the Way Fund. You can see it. We'll share it. I'll share it here at Bob Jeswald Facebook, at Bob Jeswald Instagram. This will be on. It'll also be on Bob Jeswald Twitter. And you can follow me there as well. And on News 3, too, WRBL is the local CBS affiliate in which we are using it out of their studios where we broadcast from. You guys have a fantastic day, and lead the way. Do it. Be one. Be innovative. Be